Hey folks, what's your welcome back to another Poem Masters video, and time for the video that everyone loves and hates the most at the same time. The tier list for, I guess, 5 stars, right? We've done 3 stars, 4 stars, all that stuff. Replay units, banner units. I don't know. I did a bunch of random tier lists for fun recently, and let's do another one for fun, or not fun. Depends on you. I don't know. I like them. I like doing them. But, yeah, 5 stars. So this should be all the 5-star units in the game, unless I missed any. I don't think I did. Let me just go through them real quick. I think I got most of them, right? If not all of them. So, yeah, basically, again, as usual, just rank them on, how well they generally do in Villa and Legendary Arena, Full Force Battle, all that stuff. And, just basically single player. I don't know. Yeah, I don't even know why I have to, say all 3 of them every time. Single player, that basically, covers them all. Yeah, all these units, it's gonna be kind of weird because we have, in here, tech, support, strikers, all that stuff, tanks, healers, damage buffers, special strikers, physical striker. It's a mix of stuff, but, I mean, you guys wanted me to do it, so we'll try, right? Digimon, sometimes, the tierings in terms of where to place supports versus techs versus strikers, it's kind of weird, but bear with me. So, anyways, let's get into this then. Starting from Alexam. Alexam's probably the easiest to rank on this list. It's an easy S, right? It's probably one of the best units in the game right now. It just does a billion things, buffs crit, buffs special attack, buffs accuracy, heals, and that all has MP refresh. Has a 2-gauge move with 2 move gauge regens. Does good damage if you wanted to. Could take hits decently well. Especially, both, honestly, both physically and especially because you also have a full team, reflect. Buff speed. Crit countdown. There's a billion things Alexam does. So it's pretty obvious why Alexam's up there. Moving on to the next one. Garchomp's an easy. Why do I have regular Garchomp and Mega everyone else here? You know what? That's not fair to Garchomp. Let's put Mega Garchomp in there. Just for the OCD folks out there. Since I think all the other ones I picked their Mega forms. Because I usually go with either non-Megas, all non-Megas or all Megas. So yeah, Garchomp, right? Extremely high damage. Decently, actually really tanky for a for a striker, right? Good speed, all that stuff. Really strong team that you can run, right? Sandstorm, extremely high damage. Obviously mentioned that before. It's just an all-around monster, right? Moving on to Rotom. Rotom is the one that I struggled with a bit, and I think I'm probably gonna land it at A. Rotom obviously has some really good stuff. Sync move countdown has that, as well as accuracy buffs. Special attack buffs, right? Did I mention crit buffs? I think I did. Self heals potentially if you get dodges, right? On dodges, self evasion buffs, decent tank stats. Just overall good tank that also has some support stuff that you could use as well. Also, hostile environment on Thundershock. Really, really solid tank overall. I was slightly struggling to, if I should put it in S or A. I think I went with A, just because she's, just not as well-rounded as, say, Alexam, right? But still very, very, very good. Moving on, Superior probably here as well. Superior, I do think Rotom's probably better in general, but obviously they do, some different things. Superior obviously gives move gauge, which is really, really good. Also, again, special attack buffer. Doesn't tank as well as Rotom, but could take a few hits. Energy Bell on a roll, decrease, opponent's special defense. Overall, solid support, right? Moving on, Mega Sharpedo / Grimsley, probably in B tier. Probably still has the highest DPS in the whole game, which is really nice. It's always good to have, right? Plus, it's a water type unit, so you could always run it with rain, which is also great as well. Yeah, I don't know what else. Sharpie is good. Does really good damage. Defense down, all that stuff. Really, really good. Solid. Moving on to Milotic. Milotic probably an A. Milo does good damage for tech for some reason, but obviously mostly you're gonna use it for tanking, and it's a phenomenal tank, right? It has like a billion ways to heal itself. It has something unique which blocks status conditions, which I don't think is the best thing in the world, just because it can't like block additional statuses, additional effects from moves that give statuses, which would make it much better if it did that, but it doesn't. So it is what it is, I guess. But yeah, overall, really solid tank, and also surprisingly good damage dealer as well. Gives you trap, all that stuff. Pretty obvious why it's up there. Moving on to Berg Levani. Berg, I would say. Oh, I just noticed I have the letters wrong. Let's put C here, D here, E here, and that's F. Whoops. But yeah. Berg Liamani, probably gonna put it one tier lower in C than Sharpedo. It just doesn't have that high of a damage cap, unfortunately. It does have very good utility, right? In decreasing the opponent's special defenses. It has 2 honor rolls on Bug Buzz, 2 or 3 honor rolls on Bug Buzz, right? How many was it? For some reason, it's escaping my mind right now. Yeah, 2 honor rolls. Oh yeah. It has 1 more honor roll on its passive. So that's why I was confusing that. Also have Swag Bag on Silver Wind, which is pretty fun as well. You could run it in the sun with some like good stuff as well. So like Leavani also pretty decent there, right? As a striker, but it's just that the overall damage is not the best, unfortunately. Moving on, we've got Meowstic. Meowstic's a solid C as well. Meowstic does some really good stuff, has really good speed. Can tank-ish. I mean, it got self-heals, which obviously helps in that. Has a chance to confuse, not really high though. But it also has a guaranteed Thunder Wave, which is always really good to have. Moving on to Ho. Ho is probably a B. Ho again does really good damage. It provides Endless Sun, which is insanely powerful. Also, Ho burns, got a 2 gauge move, 2 type coverages. Just overall really solid unit all around. Moving on, Eevee's probably B as well. Eevee's probably the best non-gridded support overall. Just because it's very versatile, especially in Battleville, right? And different team comps you could run it with, especially if you're running it with Megas, right? Who have like kind of doo-doo sync moves, which there's a lot of them, or stuff like Pinsir, right? Some unconventional strikers. Eevee fits a lot of teams. Also has Potion, Move Gauge, has okayish bulk, right? I mean, not okayish, like she has like really good tankiness, right? Where's Eevee? Or is it like a lot of HP? I can't remember. But I just yeah, solid stats, over 600 HP with over 200 on both defenses. So there's that as well. Obviously Evo Boost is what we're going for, the main key there. Helios, I'd say C. It really just depends on the team that you're running, right? But in general, C, just because it does some very powerful stuff. It's just that a lot. It's hard to. It's very ironic because you could fit Helios in almost any team and make it work out, but at the same time, on a lot of teams you also can't put it in because you probably want to put something else in there instead. Just because a lot of strikers are kind of needy with their team comp setups, but with team comps that aren't as needy, you could obviously just plug in Helios and just run with it. It's just that good, right? Moving on, Octillery is probably E. For those who don't remember what Octillery does, Octillery, because I mean, not a lot of people have Octillery, right? It's a limited unit. It hasn't come around quite back yet, right? Does have Octazooka, lower opponent's accuracy, could potentially burn as well. Has okayish defensive stats, if I remember correctly, right? Let's check out Octillery. Yeah, those are okay. Those are okay. They're not the best. But also has really bad speed. Octazooka's, Skull's a 3 gauge move for the chance to burn, right? It has defensive buffs. Hostile environment, right? Fortuitous, which is all nice. It's okay. It got better, right? But it's still slightly lacking, unfortunately. Anyways, moving on to Drifloon. Drifloon was also a tough one to rank. I would probably say C. Like, its damage is like really good. But it does have a consistency issue, right? It's not the most consistent striker in the world, just because of how Phantom Force works. Not extremely consistent, but if played correctly, Driploom is very, 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 very powerful, right? So there's that. Moving on, Lycanroc, C, D, in between that, right? I'd say probably C, obviously on the lower tier of C. But Lycanroc still does solid damage, right? 401 physical attack, very, very good. Amped up is also very, very powerful passive in general. It's hard. Unfortunately, can't take too many hits, but it's hard, and that's what you need in Striker. So there you go. We're on Serena Delphox in an easy S, right? AoE sleep and insane amounts of damage as well. Also has some interesting tech you can run with Fire Spin with Mind. What was it called again? Mind something, not Mind Swell. Is the other thing? Mind Games. I can't remember what it's called. Yeah, Mind Games. Yeah, it is Mind Games. Like again, we already know the deal with Serena Delphox. A billion unbelievably overpowered things that it could do. I'm not sure they were they thought this one through on DNA's part, making her so powerful. Moving on, this one might come as a surprise, but Sceptile, I probably rank it B, although albeit probably on the lower side of B, but still B, right? In between C and B. Sceptile, when it first came out, everyone trashed on it because a really bad special attack, right? People are memeing on it for being bad, but as the game has progressed, right, especially with introduction of the Legendary Arena, like people kind of see how powerful Sceptile is, right? Because on a 1 gauge move with refreshable, MGR, right, you have 51% chance to flinch, and then you also have that and poison as well. Also very, very powerful there. And it does good damage if you're using it as Striker, but you're mostly, it's the most powerful when you're using it as a tech because it's just so good, right? On that front. So there's that. Moving on, Golisopod's probably also an S. Although it's probably on like the lower end of S, right? I'd probably say. Although it's still definitely, up there as well. It's just not as good as like any of the other S's, but it's also, much better than, most of the stuff in A. In terms of strikers, right? Striker wise. I don't know, Golisopod, just really, really good damage on a 2-gauge move with 2 MGRs. Solid defenses, has first aid, vigilance. You could run a sync nuke on it as well. You also, could first impression kind of build. That's also really, really powerful. Obviously, most powerful build. Pin missiles with no quarter, right? 2 MGRs. It's just an unbelievably good striker. So there's that. Moving on. Torterra, probably in B. Torterra is very, very good defensively as a tank, right? Physically, right? Unfortunately, it doesn't have MGR on the full restore. But if you think about it, if it had full restore MGR, not MGR, MPR, right? That would be kind of insane, which is really, really good. For those running defense crush on Torterra, that makes it even better, right? Because it has an AOE defense crush, which is really, really good. If you do run Lucky Skill, defense crush on it, which I know not everyone does, but if you do, it's really good, as you could probably tell, because I've said it 7 times or whatever. Decrease opponent's attack, increase your defenses, all that stuff. Could potentially do okay-ish damage if you want as well. You could grid it that way. Obviously, that's not what you're mainly using it for, but it's not bad there either. Just overall solid unit. So there's that. Moving on. Hilda, probably C. Hilda obviously still has like some drawbacks, obviously not that much, but it's very, very good. Offensively, has a very powerful sync nuke. If you want to run Flare Blitz, it's still very, very viable. Potions with MPR on potion, and Master Healer 2 on potion, right? For only 10 energy, that's a complete steal, right? Hilda's such a good striker with a very powerful utility in the potion as well, and also speed with flame charge. Even though Hilda's base speed is really bad, but obviously it's just flame charge, and you don't even have to use Hilda striker to make Hilda very very powerful, right? Also really lots of HP as well. So there's that. Moving on, Dragonite probably in C as well. Dragonite with supports, Dragonite plus Sabrina is just like, otherworld like levels of like power. It's just it does so much damage. It's so good, right? Yeah, so there's that. Also has potion, which is nice. Unfortunately, it just doesn't really do anything else, but it does very good damage, which is what you want in a striker, right? Move on. Blue Pidgeot, probably going to be in D. It's not the most consistent unit in the world, although again you could still buff it, all that stuff, make it much better. Does good damage, really really good damage. But yeah, it does have that like slight downside, but overall still very very good. Moving on to Solgaleo. Solgaleo is very powerful, right? Sunsteel Strike is probably one of the strongest physical moves in the game. Just because it bypasses defense, bypasses damage reduction, crit, protect, all that stuff, passives, which is very powerful. And Focus Blast, another very powerful move. Both type coverages. Also, Solgaleo is very very tanky as well. So there's that. Glalie probably put in C. Glalie's regen is very very good. You also have a 1 gauge move spam, right? Which I do think is better than Cheren, because I used to think they were generally quite comparable, but the more I've been using both of them, the more I do prefer Glalie over Cheren. I'd say for the most part. When Cheren does get a grid, obviously Cheren hopefully will be much much better. All we need is just some good move gauge refresh on its offensive moves, honestly, for me. But yeah, Glalie still still very solid. Moving on, Mewtwo still really good as well. Good damage, really good. Stats overall, that stuff. 2 type coverages with Psychic and Shadow Ball. It's my favorite legendary. And I'm glad it's very very powerful. So there's that. Moving on, Lycanroc probably going to be in B. Leer is unbelievably powerful, right, as a move. Unfortunately, it doesn't have a grid yet. Once Kukui gets a grid, fun times ahead. But yeah, obviously, like I mentioned before, very fast as well, like 405 speed or something, if I remember correctly. Or is that 401 speed? 401 or 405 speed, something like that. Very, very good speed. You know what? It would be funny if it's 401 speed, because that would be like the other Lycanroc, except like in speed instead of attack. It's for something speed, right? 407. 407 speed. Really, really good speed. Also slows the opponent if you want that as well. But again, mostly you're using it for Leer, which is incredibly powerful, especially in stages like the Battle Villa, where the opponent doesn't have too many reduction on or resistance to defense reduction. Moving on, CM Metagross, really really powerful, incredibly sustainable in terms of its HP and all that stuff. Recuperation on a striker. I really wish we'd get more defensive strikers with recuperation. It's just so good to use. Ironhead, chance of flinch, very powerful as well. All that stuff. Haymaker, does solid damage on its sync move, despite being a mega. So yeah, that's Steelix. Oh, not Steelix. Ooh, that's the wrong Steelix. Even Metagross for you, right? Moving on to Ethan Typhlosion, unfortunately, probably going to be in E. Ethan Typhlosion can, and I know we meme on it a lot, it can do some like solid damage in Sun, right? And like even if it does get hit, like once as long as it's like over like the threshold, before it gets like too bad, it still does like okay damage, right? But obviously it does have its downsides, right? If it takes too much damage, like its damage just turns into doo-doo, which you don't want to see. So unfortunately, Ethan's probably down there. Moving on, Dusknoir. Dusknoir probably C tier still. It's unfortunately it just doesn't have a grid. But like everything else, it just does fantastically, right? Crit buff, physical attack buff. All the physical attack buff is slightly annoying because you have to like wait till it takes some you take some damage before you could utilize the full effect of it, but nonetheless still very very good. It's giving it, it gives out move gauges, all that stuff. Decently tanky without heals, although again, you know, you probably don't want to use Dusknoir to tank anymore these days, unless, you know, you have like a Misty or Glalie or something helping Dusknoir heal, right? Something like that. But yeah, there's that. Moving on. Wally Glade. Probably gonna be an A tier. As you know, first striker, very, very powerful. Super sustainable in Villa as well. Just very high damage cap. You know, Wally Glade is just very powerful. I don't know what else I'll say. It's very, very powerful. Offensively. I really like it. Its kit is so well done. I'm a huge fan of Wally and Glade's kit. It's very fun to use. Moving on. Red is obviously still up here. Red has a lot of good stuff, right? Really good stats in general. What else? Oh, Rejuvenate is I love Rejuvenate, man. Rejuvenate is poggers on its grid, right? Every time, yeah, after you sync move, you get the gauges back. Although, you know, you don't necessarily use it every time, because there are some team comps where you probably don't want to use it. Obviously, you could also run it in Sun, not Charging Sun, Speeding Sun, and Solar Flare, right? You know, it's fun sometimes to run it in a lot of really fun comps that you could run it with, right? Especially now that hose thing, it just makes red so much better. It's good. It's very good. I don't know what else to talk about red. It's red, right? Everyone knows how good red is. Moving on, Sceptile. Sceptile C tier. Again, solid damage, right? Especially if you are willing to use a like cookie on it, right? Get Dauntless on the Leaf Storm. Those are very, very powerful Leaf Storms, and also plus we don't have like any like other. I mean, you know what? That's not true. We do have another really good grass type tracker in Roserade, right? But yeah, still Sceptile does like slightly better damage, and the kit works better with lucky skills. Unfortunately, Roserade's kit doesn't work as well with Dauntless. You could still work, but it just doesn't work as well as Sceptile does, right? Moving on, Rayquaza, probably going to be an E as well. Again, does really solid damage if you set it up right. If you're willing to invest into it, right, giving a lucky cookie or whatever, it's still very, very good that way. But it just unfortunately gets outclassed a lot, right, by other Dragon type strikers. Like both, like even like if you're running an Outrage build or a Draco Meteor build, like Draco Meteor build, you get outclassed by Clarion Kingdra. Outrage build, you get outclassed by Iris, right? So kind of sad, I guess. But oh well. Moving on, Reuniclus. Solid B tier. Reuniclus, very, very good tank. Also does solid damage offensively as well, right? And it's very it's special. It also has, you know, propulsion on hidden power, catalytic cure. It's just such a good versatile unit that could do like a bunch of things, right? So there's that. Moving on to Stoutland. Probably gonna put it at E tier. It's just not as good as Glalie, unfortunately. Just because it costs more than Glalie to use. Not in the sense, well, I mean, you know, Stoutland's a free unit and Glalie's, you know, obviously, you know, it's a summonable unit. Not in that sense. I mean, in terms of the commitment, right? The move gauge that it uses. It's still good. It's still good. It has, you know, decent utility as well. Full heal isn't the best. It's not extremely relevant, but in some cases you could still use it, right? Obviously. So there's that. Zebstrika, if you're wondering why is there an F tier, this is why. I love Elisa. I really do. I really can't justify making Zebstrika any higher than this. Like, I was thinking maybe I'll put her like an E tier so we don't have to like make an extra tier just for her. But then, like, if you put, like, every one of these units, Octillery, you know, Ethan, Rayquaza, like, Stoutland, they're all so much better than Zebstrika. Like, it's not even close. So, I mean, I'm sorry. I love Elisa. She's just not good. She's very bad. I mean, as for a short explanation, since I do it for all of these, Recoil, very bad. Damage isn't even that good. It's sad. She has decent stats, I guess, which is nice, but like it just doesn't outweigh the cons. The cons are just so bad. Moving on to Grimsley. Grimsley is a great evasion tank. if you are willing to give it, I think it's unbending, right? I can't get all these paths, man. Just the one that mitigates defense decreases, right? So there's all that. You could heal, you know, good heals with snatch. Could do some decent damage on sync move, right? If you know, snatch right targets, all that stuff. Well, you don't have snatch, you could also buff it if you want. But again, you're mostly using it for evasion tank, which is decent. Yeah, it's really good. Moving on to Steelix. Steelix is a solid beat here. Steelix is very, very similar to Reuniclus, right? In a lot of ways. Except it doesn't heal as much as Reuniclus, but it has better defensive stats than Reuniclus, I guess. Steelix is... Here's the thing with Steelix, right? If you're comparing Steelix with Dawn, which I know a lot of people do, they do have relatively similar kits and similar purposes. Dawn is probably better all around, right? Has healthy healing, has the, you know, full restore, right? Also still very good physically, defensively. Obviously, Steelix is on another level physically, right? In terms of its defense. I mean, if you look at the stats, like, oh my god, right? Look at that stat. But Dawn, not bad either. Not bad either. However, Steelix does have one thing over Dawn, which is even though Steelix is probably not as applicable in as many teams as Dawn is, Steelix, when you sub Steelix into a Sand team, Steelix is like on another, like a completely another level in terms of good, right? Steelix, Garchomp, Acerola, insanely powerful team. But just I don't think in general, you know, on other teams, Torterra is probably better. And speaking of that, we got the other unit that also has that issue, which is Acerola. Acerola, same thing. On a Sand team. I mean, Acerola is the Sand team, right? Although you could, you know, you don't have to run Acerola on Sand teams, right? On a Sand team, Acerola is incredibly good, very, very vital. However, you know, not on Sand teams, it, you know, usability does drop a bit. However, there is still a lot of great uses for Acerola, even if you're not using Sandstorm, right? Which a lot of people do ignore. For example, the Legendary Arena was a very, very good example of this, right? Everyone was, I won't say everyone, like, most people were just running Acerola just on any team, right? Acerola wasn't even using Sandstorm. Acerola was just there to astonish. Very, very high chance for flinch on a 1 gauge. Flinch is just so powerful in this game, right? So that's why, you know, Acerola's there. Moving on to Houndoom. Solid 8 here. Houndoom's damage is off the charts, right? Like, if you compare, like, strikers here, right? Like, in terms of just, like, straight up damage, like, if you're just comparing straight up damage, like, Houndoom is, like, this tier, like, in terms of, like, damage, right? Houndoom does take a while to set up, which is slightly, you know, which is something against it, right? Which is why Houndoom is not in S tier. But in terms of, you know, just raw numbers, Houndoom is up there, right? And that's why Houndoom's that high. Moving on to Meganium. Meganium probably in D. Meganium did get much, much better with Ho-Oh, right? Ho just makes so many, you know, units so much better. And Meganium, again, is another example of that. Just under Sun, like, Meganium is just so much more powerful. All that stuff. Light Screen is always nice to have. Meganium is just not very sustainable, unfortunately. And not as good outside of Sun, but now again, nowadays Sun's just so common, right? Everyone just runs Ho-Oh plus whatever, right? Ho plus Fire unit plus whatever else unit that use Sun, Erica, Meganium, this, that. So yeah, Meganium still good. Meganium, if I remember correctly, defensively is actually not the best, which is another knock against it. For a supposed tank, right? Yeah. Oh my god, it's yikes. Yeah. 800 HP though. That's nothing. No slander there. 800 HP. All right, moving on. Miss Meg is probably in E tier. However, like, it's probably like the best of the E tier, just because like it's very powerful. Like in terms of just straight up damage, does really good damage. It just doesn't do any more other than that. It's just a good damage dealer, right? Yeah, and that's about it. Also, its damage isn't the most consistent, but it's solid. It's Magus. Do big damage, Shadow Ball. Moving on. Samurott is probably D tier as well. Phoebe's just better. Phoebe's just straight up better than Samurott in most case scenarios. Not all. Samurott still gives you speed, which is always nice. But Phoebe also gives you like move gauges straight up, so it's like not that big a deal. But it is better for units that actually like require speed for their passives or whatever, right? Stuff like inertia, instead of just straight up move gauge issues, because again, you could just use Phoebe for that, and Phoebe does also give you crit. But Samurott's still solid in that sense. I think Samurott's really good defensively as well, right, in terms of stats. Yeah, solid numbers here. Very good. Moving on to Delibird. Delibird is kind of sad. Delibird used to be I still love using Delibird. Plus, Rosanta is adorable. But I'm probably gonna put Delibird over here. One of my favorite sync pairs in the game. Not my favorite. It's my favorite, but still one of my favorite sync pairs in the game. It's just fallen off a lot, unfortunately. Delibird was very, very good in co-op, and still is very good in co-op, right? But again, we're not talking about co-op. It's single player, and Samurott just straight up outclasses Delibird. Samurott's just a better Delibird, right? Samurott gives you +6 on your attacks, right? Easily, and Delibird gives you +4 and maybe a little more, right? Because again, the random chance of the stat buffs on all the presents, obviously not very reliable, but still nice to get a decent stat off of that. But again, not very reliable, and all the presents, while being faster than speed, is very limited. It's only for a few turns, and it goes away relatively quickly. And speed obviously lasts for the full battle, so Samurott's generally better for longer battles. Delibird maybe for shorter battles, I guess. And for units that do have at least 1 X attack on them, or some kind of attack boosting trainer move or whatever. Moving on, last one over here. For Alligator, probably an E as well. Good damage. I don't know what else to say. Good damage. Setup's kind of annoying, I guess, but once you do get that, the damage is really good. Mega Kick hits like a truck, right? And also, since water type does still get rain as well, so that's always nice. But yeah, there we go. Hey, we got them all. Yay. That's a lot of 5 stars, man. I mean, since like every single 5-star that they just keep on pumping out, except for like Lucy or whatever, right? Or some free to play sync pairs. I've always just been 5 stars, so there's a lot of them, I guess. But yeah, that's me with this one. Hope you guys enjoy. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Like and enjoy this video, subscribe to my channel for some more Pokemon Masters content. By the way, on Masters Minutes, the podcast channel, right? We will be going into more detail into like the whole tier list and stuff. So you guys could check that out if you guys want. When that comes out, we haven't done it yet, but we'll do it sometime in the near future and we'll notify you guys. So anyways, yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.